Once you've ruled out the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Denton. It is vampires. There's a host of damned souls at Pelham House.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true god?
He's dead. Can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Paranormal UK Radio Show, the flagship show here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Once again, I'm Mark Johnson, flying solo tonight. Irene couldn't make it. She had a bunch of personal matters to take care of today. So, unfortunately, you're stuck with me. Oh, well, I pity you. In any case, I hope everyone had a great Halloween season. Of course, my favorite time of year. I didn't really get to do a whole heck of a lot, but, this year's just been one of those years. But still, coming into fall, it's beautiful. All the leaves are changed and falling everywhere. So here in the northeast of the United States, it's beautiful, and I'm sure over there in the UK, it's gorgeous too. Next time Irene's on, she can talk about it. So in any case, I want to go ahead and get right into tonight's guest because I'm fascinated with her story. We're talking tonight with Lorraine McAdam. Now, Lorraine is an artist, a writer, a poet. In the past, she's worked as a nurse for well over 12 years. And later on, she trained to become a teacher and has been teaching English for the last 12 years and now runs her own tuition business. Now, she's also been having experiences and encounters with what we think are paranormal ETs, UFOs, etc., which she realized she's been having since she was a child. And these are chronicled in her brand new book, Phantoms of the Night, My Lifelong Experience of Contact with the Paranormal. Actually, it's Phantoms in the Night or ETs, question mark. So, Lorraine, welcome to the program.
Oh, hi. Thank you for having me on.
Now, Lorraine, could you tell just for the audience, tell us where you currently reside?
I live in Cumbria, UK, in a city called Carlisle, often called the Border City. It's very near to the Lake District, about 20 minutes from the famous Lake District, which is a very beautiful part of the UK. I'm sure UK viewers all immediately understand what I'm talking about there. My husband's actually walked all the Wainwrights, which are very famous here. They are the mountains that Mr. Wainwright traversed, and then people try and do them. There's about 256 of them. So that's what we're famous for here. Yeah.
Well, hey, you tell me, since I haven't had a chance to talk to Irene, how is the fall weather over there? Are leaves changing?
Absolutely. It's very beautiful here, actually. You get lots of different colours. And as I say, we're 10 minutes from Scotland. We're near to Gretna, if you've heard of Gretna, where people used to run away to get married. And we are very close to, as I say, to this beautiful mountainous region called the Lake District. And there's lots of beautiful colours there, and against the backdrop of the mountains, lots of different tree species as well. So it's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. I was over in the UK for the very first time this summer in August and stayed with Irene. She and her husband live in Wales. So we spent most of our time in Wales. But very beautiful country. And I can't wait to come back.
You should come to the lakes next time. It's really beautiful here too. So not that Wales isn't. We have Mount Snowdon's gorgeous, but it's absolutely lovely here with the Lake District. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, Irene's partly Scottish from the Mackenzie clan, so you're coming up that way. I'm sure she'd love to do that.
Yes. We've got that in common. I'm half a Scot too. I'm McAdam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So let's talk about your book, Phantoms in the Night, or ETs. Now, you have been having these experiences since childhood, but when did you first start to notice that you were having these experiences? Did it take a while before you started to put things together that something wasn't right?
It took quite a long time for me, actually, yeah, because the actual, what I believe now when I look back, abductions, and I firmly believe there were abductions, began when I was only about 12 years old. And what would happen would be that I would just hear this, sometimes I would hear whispering as though they were conducting a conversation, and I thought I was hearing things, at first. And then what would happen, I'd hear this whispering, and then this buzzing noise would start up, and it sounded like, to kind of illustrate for listeners, like the buzzing of a lot of bees, and it would just grow louder and louder till it would kind of fill me from top to toe, and I would be completely paralyzed, couldn't even open my mouth to scream or anything, and I wanted to, believe me. And then I would just black out, and it would go from being nighttime when I was in my room in the dark, and suddenly it would flip from night to day, and it would feel to me, from my perspective, like seconds had just gone past, and then it would suddenly be 6 a.m. or something like that, and this went on right until I was 16 years old. It would happen at least once, sometimes twice a week to me, and I just didn't understand what the heck was happening to me at all. And I just put it down, because I'd been brought up as a Catholic, I put it down to demon oppression that I was being, and I prayed, and I would cry out to Jesus to deliver me from them and all sorts, and nothing worked really. Yeah.
Now, this has been happening to you most of your life, yet you've only recently decided to come forward. Your book was published just back in August.
That's
right.
And
so this is the first time you're telling your story. Why now?
Because, well, the first thing that convinced me was I saw the naval people coming out, the pilots, about the tic-tac craft. And when I saw that, I thought, well, I've seen that. I've seen one on the ground, and I've seen one, as I'll explain, I saw one in a very vivid dream. And I believe they belong to what are often referred to as the Nordic ETs. So I saw that, and I also was kind of pushed, I believe, by a Nordic that contacts me from time to time. And I feel like he was saying, for God's sake, how long are you going to wait? Get your story out. Tell them what you've seen. How long are you going to wait? And this happened during lockdown, where he appeared to me on 3 separate occasions, and I believe I was abducted on one of them, actually. But I believe the craft I've seen are the Nordic craft as well, as I'd explain if you like. But there is quite a lot to my story. But I feel like I was kind of given a metaphorical kick up the bottom by the Nordics to kind of get my story out. And also I felt, as I've explained in my introduction, that that for the last 30, 40 years, we've all been ridiculed and called loonies and nutcases, haven't we, when we've tried to tell people about this. And even my own mother wouldn't believe me, for a long time, until she saw a UFO herself in the same field I saw them in. And then she said, oh my God, I think you must have been telling the truth all along. But that's I'll explain that, further on in the interview. But I just feel like there's a sea change going on as we speak, what with David Grush coming out, and the American government giving amnesty, are they, to whistleblowers now? Is that right? Am I correct with that? So I think that's a good thing, and I feel like I have been in the paper, the local paper as well, and I feel like that I've been given I haven't been ridiculed as much as I thought I was going to be, apart from one set of people, but the reception of this has been so open-minded by most people. I feel like there's a sea change going on towards people like myself, they're in attitude, if that makes sense.
There has been a paradigm shift these last several years between the release of this military footage. It's like partial disclosure, yet the government still is very tight-lipped on a lot of it. The people, ufologists, are all happy with glee that all this is coming out. Unfortunately, I feel the general public is still apathetic because they've been conditioned for so many years to dismiss this as fantasy, and the media always, if they ever did report on something, there would always be the snicker factor of them, playing X-Files music or whatever, not taking it seriously. But now, things are changing.
Yes,
and
definitely.
There are more shows, TV shows that are based on it. My favorite right now, of course, and I've mentioned this before on the show, is the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, which is about that.
Yes, I've read that actually.
There was the book, but they have a television series here in. I think it's finally also airing over in your country, but where they're doing a lot of scientific experiments on that ranch, and some of what they're coming up with is just mind-blowing.
Oh, wow.
And then, I've also had the opportunity to talk with, I'm going to say over the last few years, a dozen other UFO experiencers, as I call them. And I'm not sure abduction is the right word anymore.
No, I don't like using it, actually. I'd rather say that I'm a witness or that I'm an experiencer. Yeah. Because I don't feel that my encounters have been, I don't feel like they were malevolent, if that makes sense. I feel like they were beneficial to me, that they raised my consciousness. Yeah.
It's just, when you're grown up with certain ideals, and especially with religious background, and back then, of course, none of this was really that much in the public eye, so people had no idea about it.
No, they didn't.
And it really did take cases like Barney and Betty Hill in the 60s to start putting things on the map, and it really took off when Whitley Strieber wrote his book Communion, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, because I know that comes into play into your story.
Yes, it does, definitely.
Tell me, what are some of your earliest memories of your first encounters that you can remember?
They were very frightening to me at first, because, as I say, I thought they were demons, and I would pray for them to go away and things, and that none of that worked. And one night, one of my really vivid memories is of waking up, and it was almost like they were trying to show me we're not demons, we're actually physical beings just like you, because I could see, I think it was a male, I'm going to say his hand. I could see his hand, and I could see it was different from a human hand. I could see the three long fingers. And it really scared me. And my reaction was kind of, unfortunately, I wish I hadn't done that now, but I was so scared. So I dug my nails into this hand. And the reaction I got was I got dug back by him. Then he let me out of the paralysis. And I ran to put the light on, and I looked at my hand, and there were marks where he dug me. But obviously they'd vanished. And I thought, oh my God, what the heck was that? And then there was another time where I was literally put back outside during the summertime in my back garden, and had to knock on the door, of course, to get my mum to let me back into the house. And she accused me of doing it for attention, of literally climbing out the window down the pipe. There was a pipe outside my bedroom window, the down pipe, and then jumping off into the garden just to wake her up at 6 a.m. like you do, to get attention. And that wasn't the case at all. I had to knock on the door, and I was completely confused and disorientated on that occasion. And then there was another occasion where they paralysed me, but I didn't black out, and felt like they were poking me in the back, and I thought, what on earth are they doing now? And when I came out of the paralysis, it was almost like they did it on purpose. There were all these like black, like hieroglyphic like symbols on the back of my nightdress, and it was like a black charcoal crayon.
Really?
Yes, yeah, and that terrified me. And foolishly, because I was only a kid, I went and just put my nightie in the wash and thought,
oh, I was going to say, please tell me you took pictures.
No, do you know, I didn't, because we weren't very well off. I didn't have a camera. You're talking about the mid-70s. My mum and father had broken up, and she had very little money. So I didn't have a camera. I didn't possess one, honestly. I wish I had. But I was so frightened by it, to be honest with you. I just wanted it to go away. And my mum found it and really told me off about it and accused me of drawing them. And I said, how would I know how to draw? It looked like Egyptian hieroglyphic. I said, how would I know how to draw those? And we had this huge argument, and I ended up having to wash it myself. Yeah. And she wouldn't believe me.
Let me ask you, the being with the 3 fingers. Now, you've mentioned the Nordics a couple of times, and yes, we'll get into those. But
yeah,
what did this being look like? Was it a Nordic, or was it what some people would think of as a gray, or what was it? What different type of being?
It was a grey, because I did also have, shortly after that happened, I had a dream. Now I'm saying dream in inverted commas, because I believe what my mind was doing was recalling back some of what had happened during the time of the abduction, or when I was taken. Because what happened was they appeared to me like it was pitch black, because it was pitch black in reality in my bedroom. And I was floated out of bed, and I was put on like a floating stretcher. I know this sounds weird. And the stretcher then kind of slowly moved through the wall, and I went through my bedroom wall, and I remember looking at the spiders' webs in the brick. Inside the brick there were spiders and spiders' webs. I can remember this even now, years later. And I came through the wall, and I was floated up to a waiting cylindrical craft. And it was a round craft, and underneath there's this really deep kind of blue light coming out of the bottom of this craft. And as I zoomed up towards it, I just passed out. So I must have maybe passed out in reality, I don't know. And that's all I could remember. But it was from that point onwards that I began to think, what on earth is happening to me? You know, am I going crazy? Am I having nightmares? You know, it was just, I'll be about 14 at this point, and it had been happening for about 2 years, and I thought, what the heck is this? What the heck is going on? You know, and I didn't really want to accept that I was having some kind of contact or something. You know, it just didn't even come into my mindset. I couldn't, you know, I didn't want to face it. It was like I was in denial for a long time, you know. So it really scared me, actually. You know, and every time I tried to tell my mum, she just said, oh, you've got a really vivid imagination, you're just having nightmares. And that's all I got. And then she threatened to take me to the psychiatrist after, you know, when I got put in the garden. You know, she wouldn't believe me, because I realised then something really strange was going on, you know, to wake up there. And then sometimes I'd be put back with my nightie on the wrong way or inside out. That often happened. Like I didn't have any concept about human clothing.
I've heard similar stories about that. I've heard of one gentleman I interviewed who came back wearing a woman's nightshirt.
And
he
believe it.
He actually had gone to bed wearing a T-shirt that says I got abducted by aliens, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt. So he can only imagine who might have wound up with that.
That's funny. That is so funny.
Yeah. So so these experiences started so young, And just, were there any breaks, periods of time where you got a reprieve, or was it just consistent throughout most of your life?
No, I did get reprieves, as you put it. I had this intense contact from being 12 to 16, and I think that was mainly the greys, as you call it. Because why I say that is because they would appear to be cats, but they can't hide the huge eyes, and they couldn't disguise the eyes. And on one occasion, I did manage to break out of paralysis and turn around and look straight at one of them, and that's what I saw, and I recognised the face on the cover of Whitley Strieber's book, in the early 90s. But then it suddenly seemed to stop around 16 when I went to pre-nursing college to do, back then you didn't do a degree like you do now, you went to do a pre-nursing course in a college. And it was when I was going to college that I feel I encountered my first Nordic, who was a lady. And I refer to her in my book as the girl at the bus stop because she never spoke. But usually when I was waiting for the bus, there would be a lot of other teenagers waiting with me to go to college as well to do various courses. But on 2 occasions when I encountered this, what I'll call a strange looking girl, there was just me and her, and she would look straight at me, and it was like she was looking into my soul almost. And she was very, very beautiful. I've got an AI picture of her if you want me to send it to you, that has since been generated by a really good friend of mine from my drawing. Yes. Yeah, she was very beautiful. And it was like she was trying to say, yes, you're not imagining things. I am not from here. I am I am in some kind of disguise role. Now, you said your wife was psychic. Well, I am also psychic and have been since I was 12. And with me, I can read people's energies. So I'm very empathetic. And I'm also psychometric, where I can take an object like an earring or a watch or someone's ring that they wear a lot, and I can read the past and the future of that person. And usually I'm quite accurate. I haven't done it for a long time, but I can do it. I also have a healing ability that I don't use a lot, but when I do use, has proved to be quite effective. I had a friend who had a tumour in her neck, and I laid hands on her and it shrank, and it shrank down to nothing after they told her that they couldn't do anything about it. So
wow.
I believe I have I wouldn't say I don't know whether I have more power than I realise even, I don't know, because that really did stun me actually when she said it had shrunk. But I believe I have some ability, definitely, yeah.
A lot of experiencers have reported, I've always been fascinated with the works of Dolores Cannon or even Dr. John Mack, who were both hypnotherapists and regress people back to their experiences. And, so many of them do come back from, like yourself, from these experiences with enhanced psychic abilities, with the ability to heal, psychometry, all sorts of psychic or even paranormal events. Did you ever have a problem being around electronics? Yes, I do.
Frequently. My husband and me have a standing joke that I explode all the light bulbs in the kitchen. Halogen ones seem to be vulnerable to me. I don't know why. My husband thinks it's hilarious. And there was one time, and it's if I get extremely happy or extremely sad, it happens, and I don't know why. But we were having this huge row one day. We all row, don't we, when we're married? But we were having this huge row, and we happened to be under the halogen lights in the kitchen, and they all went pop, pop, pop as I kind of blew a gasket at my husband. And he kind of diffused the situation, if you'll pardon the pun, in a way, because these lights popping off above us made us both fall about laughing at each other, And what I tend to do is I set off airport equipment when I'm going through it, and I can take every bit of metal off me. I can take my watch. I've learned to just take them all off. And there was one occasion when no matter what I took off and what I did, I just kept setting the airport security off. I think it was when I was going to Florida, actually. And this lady was really puzzled by me, and she waved the finger over my knee. And every time she waved it over my right knee, it went ping, ping, And she said, "Have you had a knee implant or something?" I said, "No." "Have you had a knee replacement?" "No." And she just couldn't get her head around it. And in the end, she just waved me through because I was such a nuisance, It just wouldn't stop doing it. So, and I do set alarms off in shops sometimes. I'll trigger them for no apparent reason. Yeah, they're security alarms. It happened to me in New York when me and my husband went to New York in spring. And this guard chased me thinking that I'd shoplifted and I hadn't. And I quite happily let him look in my bag. But it was embarrassing, And I said, "See, I told you I hadn't stolen anything." So yes, I do.
It's all this high strangeness and weirdness that we put up with, and that go through this. I can't say I have not. The closest I've ever come was on a couple of occasions. I've seen string of orange globes, lights in the sky,
yes.
Behaving mysteriously.
Yes.
I did have one vivid dream not very long ago of being floated up to a UFO, examined and returned, and it did happen during a dream state, but it was so vivid. Now I'm sitting here thinking,
Yes, that sounds suspicious to me. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. This one friend of mine I was telling you about before we started, who's having very similar experiences to yours.
Oh, wow. That gives me validation. Yeah.
Lives over in Belgium, and he's been having ongoing experiences now for quite a while, but they've been very intense, and it's the same situation with him. And when you talked about having missing time, suddenly it's a blink later and several hours have passed. Have you ever had an encounter with these beings where it felt like maybe you were gone for hours or days, and then when you come out of it, it seems like seconds or minutes have passed?
Yes, I have. There's one in my book, actually, that I document, which I think is one of my more important ones as far as witnesses are concerned, because 8 witnesses saw me go missing for an hour when I was actually a nurse on night duty. I was the senior staff nurse as well, so they were all panicking, thinking, where the heck is she? What happened was that I used to do 4 nights a week. And curiously, on this occasion, to give you some context, can I just explain it from the beginning? Because I need to talk about Nordic to give this some context. What happened when I was about 17, and this is in my book as well, and I'll send you a photo of him that's been done by my friend, if you like, because I think you'd find that interesting. I met, I had 2 more men came to my door, and as I say, I'm very psychic, and the blonde one, I felt some strange energy from him. And they said, "Can we come back?" and all this, because I'd shown an interest. So I said they could, but the funny thing was that he came back on his own. And I've since been told that they're not allowed to do that. So I wonder what happened when I look back on this incident. And this happened very shortly after the abductions, or whatever you want to call them, stopped. But he was wearing a polo blue sweater, and he came back and he was wearing sort of dark blue chinos and this navy blue sweater, as I say. And I can remember him sitting next to me, chatting with me, and I offered him coffee and he wouldn't have it. But then I believe they won't have coffee. And he wouldn't have anything. But I can't remember what we said for the life of me, which is strange. I know we talked for quite a while. Now, you'd think that I would remember at least some of that conversation because I have a really good memory. But what I do have is a brilliant memory for faces. My husband remarks on it because I'll spot an actor in one thing and I'll say that's the actor from, say, The Big Bang Theory or something. And my husband will go, "How do you recognise them like that out of context?" So I do have a really good memory for faces. And the reason I'm saying this is for a reason, because on this particular night, when I believe I was taken in front of 8 staff, and this would be something like 16 years later, I met this same guy and he hadn't aged one bit, and I recognised him immediately. And I was walking up to work with a colleague who was with me when it happened. He was an auxiliary nurse, so what you'd call a nursing assistant in the States. And, you know, we caught the same bus. And they asked us what time it was. And I stared and stared at this blonde guy, because the reason was my friend said, he said, you fancy him? I said, no, it wasn't that. I said, I think I've seen him before. But I didn't tell him that I thought he was an alien, because I think my friend would have thought, well, my colleague would have thought I was a nutcase, I thought. So I never said anything. But I thought, how on earth can I be like 29 now? I last saw him when I was 17, and yet he doesn't seem to have aged one bit. He had no wrinkles at all, no flaws, no facial markings. He looked clean shaven. And then as I got to work that night at circa around 1 a.m, a buzzer went on the top floor. And I went to answer it because it was highly unusual, because they were what we call psychogeriatric patients, which is people with dementia or Alzheimer's. And they normally wouldn't buzz like that. You know, they wouldn't think to pull the buzzer for the nurse. You just go and check on them regularly. Anyway, I went up there, and as I traversed the corner from the lift, right at the bottom of the corridor, were not Nordic, but they looked like reptilian. And I have a mock-up of them, which I could send you as well. And I saw this male, and I believe it was a female, and she was wearing a scarf wrapped around her head. So I couldn't see her features very well, but I could see his, and he had didn't look human at all. Had like sort of pointy ears coming up from his head, and glowing red eyes, which absolutely terrified me, and this like muddy sort of brown skin, like leathery looking skin. And I just ran for the nearest bathroom and locked myself in. That was my reaction. I was absolutely terrified. And to my mind, only a second of time had gone, because I pulled the red pull switch, you know, for the nurse. The nurse that came was the other staff nurse that was on duty with me. And she said, open the door. And I said, the first thing I said is, have they gone? And she said, has who gone? And I said, those two. And I was in a right state. And she said, you've gone white. That was what the first thing she said to me was, you've gone the colour of white, literally gone white. And she said, what on earth is going on? And I tried to tell her what I'd seen, but she wouldn't believe me, of course, you know, because you were saying about people being conditioned. She said, you perhaps had an hallucination. That was what she said. And I was convinced that was no hallucination. I mean, you don't run away from an hallucination. And I was perfectly lucid. I wasn't on tablets, you know, or anything like that. People have asked me, were you on tablets? Were you on this? I wasn't on anything. I was a young woman in perfect health. You know, I was very robust back then. I could do a 12-hour shift and it wouldn't bother me, you know, a 12-hour night shift. And there was absolutely nothing wrong with me, you know, and I know what I saw. And she said, do you know what time it is? You've been missing for a whole hour. She said, we've been looking everywhere for you. We couldn't find you anywhere. She said, we've been everywhere looking for you. She said, until you pull this buzzer. And I looked down at my watch and it was exactly, you know, nearly 2 a.m. And yet to me, in my head, I've been there seconds. So that, to me, that's one of the weirdest things that's happened to me. And afterwards, I just thought, they can take me anywhere, anytime. They can come to work and literally take me, is what I thought. But I couldn't tell anyone, you know, because as you say, it was the sort of early 90s and people, you know, like react very badly, or they would just mock you. I mean, these staff knew that I was psychic as well, because I'd read done readings for them, you know, the rings and jewellery, and they knew I was psychic, and I'd seen a ghost at that same home. I saw the ghost of a little girl that haunted the top floor corridor. Mm-hmm. The first day I was on there, she went skipping past me, and I thought she was somebody's grandchild because she looked as solid as anybody. So I am prone to seeing things as well like that, you know. And I'll never forget that night. It was just so frightening. But the funny thing was that I met that same guy on the way, you know, that I'd known years before. And I wonder if there was a connection. You know, if they were trying to say, again, there are other people apart from you in the universe, you know, and I'd only just made the connection. And another salient point I'll make is that I had read communion by them, and I'd made the connection that I'd had some kind of contact with ETs, with what I call the Greys. And it made me think, well, are there these pale blonde, blue-eyed people, ETs as well? Because I got this strange energy from them. And I remember the girl at the bus stop, you know, that I'd encountered twice. And it all seemed to come back into my mind, and I thought there's a connection here. And I often wonder, are these people members of some kind of federation, or all these races, are they in some kind of federation and they're trying to get disclosure to happen on Earth because they're fed up of this embargo on the truth, and so they've all worked together with me, I feel, to push me out of my comfort zone and say, look, we're here. Hey, we're here. We're not going to go away. We're going to keep doing these things until you finally put 2 and 2 together and make 10, which is what happened, really. I don't know what you think about that, but I suspect there may be some kind of federation type thing in existence.
Well, some people have postulated on that, and I don't know. Everybody's experiences, while there are a lot of similarities, there's slightly different. There's a lot of stories about a galactic federation of light, or people talk about Pleiadians or Arcturians or anything that sometimes I think is a little too convenient, considering when we look at, let's say, a star system or a constellation, let's say Orion. Okay, Orion's famous, and you have the 3 stars in the belt of Orion, and so people call these beings some beings that come from Orion. The problem is that these stars are not all on a flat line. They're far away from each other. Some are bigger, some are smaller, and whatever. And it's just the illusion that the light plays in our eyes.
Yes, absolutely.
Those 3 belt stars are not in a line.
No, I thought so. No, and plus it's out of time, isn't it? Am I right? The what's getting to us is history, really, isn't it? Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Sorry, my desk creaks a bit.
That's okay. So I have a lot of questions about that. I also have questions about the types of ETs people see, especially the Nordics, because there's something I've heard some stories. That there was even Travis Walton's experience, when they made the movie Fire in the Sky about it, the logger back in the 70s.
Yes.
I've met Travis a couple of times. I'm actually friends with a couple of the guys that were in the truck with him.
Yes.
And he had experiences with both Greys and Nordics.
Yes, same as me. Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder, the only thing where I get a little suspicious, and I could be totally wrong, but they're very good at implanting screen memories.
Oh, they're brilliant at it. Yes, I absolutely agree with you 100%.
So sometimes when you think you might be dealing with one type of alien, for lack of a better term, or visitor, maybe you're not seeing what they actually look like. Maybe they're presenting themselves to you in such a way, because what are you going to be more afraid of? A gray with big black eyes, or a tall, very handsome or beautiful human being, and that you feel more comfortable with?
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, I don't feel that comfortable with them. Either of them, actually. I always feel really unnerved when I have, I believe, encountered Nordic ETs. They are very similar, though, I would agree with you. They don't communicate out loud, or they haven't with me. It's always been telepathic, or they haven't said anything at all, conversely. They have communicated through dreams. So, yes, I would agree that a lot of I'm actually trying to write a second book, and I've started from the premise of what I believe I know or can work out about them, like a sort of detective thing, if you will, from my own encounters with both sets of them. And, that is something I've observed, and I postulate that it could be because the physics is like thousands of years ahead of ours. I would kind of theorize, because I've kind of seen them open up a dimension on one occasion when I believe a Nordic came for me to my own house, actually into my house, to take me for whatever reason. And the dining room ceiling just opened up, and I looked up, and it was like I was looking at another dimension almost, you know. I was looking at a hangar with all these tic-tac craft. There were black shiny craft lined up on really shiny black walls, shiny black floor. And it was like they can just open one area up for you to jump from one place to another instantly. I don't know how to put it other than that. So I kind of theorised that the physics must be way ahead of ours, you know.
Like a teleportation or interdimensional travel?
I would say if they have both, from what I've experienced. I honestly do believe, and I think they, I don't know whether you've read Bud Hopkins, what a Bud Hopkins book was, Transgenic Beings, Sight Unseen. I've got that right?
I've not seen, I read that. I've not read his book, no.
Well, he kind of theorised that they know so much about physics that they can create pocket dimensions, so that, because what he was trying to work out was how people have kind of said, and I'm one of them actually, that they've been taken from busy places or had missing time, and they wonder how they could have been taken from a busy place and no one noticed. And they actually, he was saying that he believes they could even freeze time and move you into a temporary pocket dimension so that no one will have a clue. You know, no one will realise that you've even been and gone, if that makes sense. I don't know whether it does.
Well, that falls in line with what one of my friends' experiences, where he felt like he was gone for several days, and he literally was just, he woke up and it was just the next morning.
I think they can shrink time. They play with time. They seem to play with time. Yeah, I agree with that.
Doctor Who once said the wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff.
Yeah.
Now, one incident that I heard about, if you can expand on, you were taken to a strange interview in the 90s in Manchester?
Oh, that's right. Yes. Now, that was very strange. And before I talk about that, I would say that that book I was just telling you about, I actually found that he talked about a similar interview that someone else experienced, but in America, that was very similar to what I went through in Manchester. But what happened to me was, and again, makes you wonder if they can plant things in your mind and make you see things that aren't there, because I swear that I saw a box. This is the days before the internet and Google, you know, we're in the early 90s. I'd just graduated from university with a bachelor's degree, and I wanted to apply for a PA in sales, it said, in this job in Manchester. And it was in the local paper, or at least I thought it was. So, but the strange thing is, I can't even remember ringing up to arrange an interview, which is what you do, isn't it, logically, because we did have telephones then. But I think it might have said something like, just turn up on a certain day, certain time, or, you know, because I don't remember ringing up to say, when do I come for this interview or whatever. I didn't send a CV, which again is weird, because I had a CV typed up ready that had been done for me in the university department, because of course it wasn't as easy there was no email, you know, there was nothing like that. So you have to remember the technology hadn't moved on at that point. And I kind of caught a train to Manchester Piccadilly. I remember getting to Piccadilly. And the weird thing is, I do not remember how I got there. And that in itself is weird, isn't it? You'd think you'd remember that even, you know, years later. And all I remember is this, like, what appeared to be like a white office block. And I went up some stairs and I went in, and what I thought was an office. But the weird thing was, there were just these red plastic chairs, and there was this blonde girl sat behind a desk, and nothing on a desk, no typewriter. You know, you had the old-fashioned typewriters then. I think we just about got to electronic typewriters at that point. So there were no typewriters, there was no phone. We only had dial phones, remember? The cell phones were only just starting to come in, and they were like bricks, really. So there was no dial phone, there were no notices, nothing on the walls, they were completely bare. And I thought, this is weird, was the first thing that I thought. But I just thought, oh, well, maybe they've only just moved in here, or I just put it down to, maybe they've not been here long or something like that, and sat down and waited. And the strangest thing was, I said, I was dying to go to the loo, so I said to her, could I use the toilet? And she actually got all flustered at that point, and she said, I'm sorry, we don't have a toilet. Now, have you ever been in any office where they don't have a toilet? No, be honest. Yeah. So that was the first weird thing. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just have to cross my legs. And this was it was like curiouser and curiouser, to quote Alice in Wonderland. And I just sat there, and then, bearing in mind what I told you about my psychic ability, suddenly this perfectly normal to me looking, very tall though, quite broadly built man of African extraction. He looked to, I would have said he was from the African continent, in ancestry, if not in fact. And he took me into the office. He had a perfectly normal British accent, as did the girl, although she was a bit robotic. And the first thing he said to me, which was weird when I look back on it, was, I'm sorry, we've trailed you all this way. We haven't got any sales jobs, but would you like to read my wristwatch? I believe that you're psychometric. And I thought, and at the time I didn't question it. I said, oh, yes, I'll read it. And I couldn't get a thing off it. And he seemed to be pleased about this. But then it was only afterwards that I thought, how on earth did he know that I was psychometric? How on earth did he know? Because I didn't tell him. And another weird thing that happened was that as soon as I'd done this, it was like he just wanted to get rid of me. And he said to me, if you go to the bottom of the steps, there'll be a taxi waiting to take you back to Manchester Piccadilly. And I seemed to just blindly obey this, I didn't question it. I just went. And the funny thing was, the guy in the taxi was blonde as well. I could only see the back of his head, and he didn't speak. And I tried to offer him some money when he dropped me at Manchester Piccadilly, and he just waved me away as if to say, we don't want your money, which I thought was really, really weird. I mean, have you ever known a taxi driver refuse fare? And it was just the strangest thing. It really was, from start to finish. And I ended up sitting on the train feeling baffled all the way back to Darwin, Lancashire, where I lived at the time, thinking, what on earth was that all about? And just sitting there completely puzzled, going over it in my head. And of course, as soon as I got out of the place, it started to occur to me, the first thing I asked was, how did you know I was psychometric? Why did you want me to read his wristwatch? Why could I not read it? All these things were going round in my head. And it was just the strangest thing. And when I look back on it now, I just wonder if it was some kind of enclave that the Nordic ETs, and maybe in cahoots with some other people from elsewhere, had in the middle of a huge city like Manchester. Do they have enclaves amongst us? Because there are theories they walk amongst us. And I believe they do, actually. And they were just testing out my psychic ability or something. I just don't know.
It's possible that the fact that they didn't have a restroom or a loo, it might mean that a lot of this could be partly of a screen memory.
Yes, that's what's been said before to me. Yes.
Yeah. So you weren't actually in an office building. You may have been somewhere else completely, whether it's on a craft or whether it's in a slightly altered dimensional state.
Yes, yeah.
And definitely the entire experience just reeks of high strangeness.
It does to me now when I look at it years later. And another thing I forgot to tell you was the office door was open, or it appeared to be open. And this was another weird thing. I could see these light blue cars, and they were all exactly the same colour. Now, how many and I thought, what is going on here? And there were these blue cars, and they had handsome blonde men sat in them, driving them, and they were open top cars, and they were going past. And I thought, what's all that about out there? And do you know what I put it down to in my head at the time? I thought they must just be sales reps, and they have all company cars, so they're all the same colour. Just wrote it off in my head,
It's amazing what we can do to try to rationalize. Irrationality.
I mean, it was just. That is, what was I really seeing in reality? why do they play these strange games as well with reality and with you, you know?
That's a great question. What is the purpose for all of this? Some of it is so outside of our realm of comprehension, and it's impossible to say, because first of all, they're never straightforward. They're always very obtuse, or they use misdirection, or just flat out lie. They're not above lying.
No, they're not. Absolutely not. No.
So, again, there's an agenda, but what I've also found in a lot of cases like yours, I don't know how you feel about this, but they are very much, and again, Whitley Strieber commented on this, mentioned this several times in his works, that they seem to be very much not only interested in our genetics, but they're interested in our souls and our spirits. And
yes, absolutely.
Very much interactive with us on a spiritual level, to the point where, again, I have a friend, and I've heard this before through Dr. John Mack's books and Dolores Cannon's, of people who have actually worked with them over lifetimes, many lifetimes, if you believe in reincarnation. I
absolutely do. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
so
I have had recall of, well, spontaneous recall, should I say, of past lives. And one of them was actually in Atlantis, because I know somebody actually said, you know, how beautiful it was. And also in Egypt, significantly, considering that they drew those symbols on the back of my nightdress. So, and I've had people since say to me, other psychics say, you've had past lives in ancient Egypt. And I feel as if I have, you know.
That's very reminiscent of, are you familiar with Edgar Cayce?
Yes, I am, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Sleeping Prophet. And he had mentioned, when he started talking about his past lives, having a past life in Atlantis. And then when Atlantis was destroyed, moved over to Egypt.
That's right, yes. And that's how I felt about it instinctively. Before I even read up on it, I felt that the Atlantis culture, should I say, had gone across to Egypt. Mm-hmm. But the strange thing is that I had recall of being married to, because I saw my husband in this life, and in that life, he looked like a Nordic. I'll be frank about that. Mm-hmm. Never really shared that before, so that's strange how that's come up. But he looked like a Nordic, but he was dressed in the garb of a priest, like a long white garment. Mm-hmm. And then I woke up from it and thought, what the heck was that all about? And had this real feeling of tremendous loss. I felt so sad. And I wondered if it was a kind of grieving. I don't know how to put it other than that. For that person. I don't know.
For that person, but who's now your husband in this life?
I don't know whether he is or not. My husband in this life is a doctor.
No, but do you understand what I'm saying when you, or maybe I misunderstood you when you said that your husband was also, it sounded like you said it was also your husband in that past life.
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
My husband in this life is blonde and blue-eyed. He looks very Nordic.
Well, you can, and looks don't matter, obviously. It's how you feel.
He does look as if he well, I know he has, because we've traced his ancestry. He's descended from Scandinavian people. Mm-hmm. Way back in the past, though, from the Vikings. I don't know whether you know British history as well.
I do, yes.
Yeah, so he's come from the Vikings, definitely. We know that for a fact. So whether there's a connection there, because also there are rumours that Egyptians came over to Britain at one point and left traces of their civilization here. You know, there is a theory that that's happened. So you wonder, don't you, if there's some kind of connection going on.
The same theories here in America. Supposedly a cave was found in the Grand Canyon, which had all Egyptian artifacts in it.
Yes. Yeah.
We got about 5 minutes left in the program. I know you have a lot of stories to tell, and there's a lot that people should read in the book. I was wondering if you could just talk about what, one of the most recent events that really sticks out to you.
I think the one that really sticks out to me is the sighting that I had of craft in 2008. I actually witnessed white lights coming apart and coming together, and then I went out to investigate. I'm not going to say too much, but I saw landed craft on the ground, and it was egg-shaped, and it was pearlescent in colour, and there were two very tall, and I think they were Nordic beings, but I didn't get close enough to see the facial features clearly, but they looked like they were waiting for me, and I drove off in terror, and I wish I hadn't done that now in retrospect. And I believe as a consequence, that was so panicky, I went onto the M6 motorway by mistake, and I wasn't used to going on a motorway at that point. And I believe I was taken, definitely, because I had missing time of an hour. Plus, I was somehow turned back around on the motorway heading back north. And really, normally, to turn back south, you would have to go all the way to junction 43, which I didn't do. I pulled in at a service station, and somehow I miraculously got turned around, and I have no idea how that happened, because there's no pedestrian bridge, there's nothing there. And I told the journalist that interviewed me recently about all this, and he thought it was really, really weird as well, and agreed with me that something strange must have happened that night. But the most recent thing I had was during lockdown, when I was told that I would receive a message soon. And I thought, is this going to be a verbal message, a written message, whatever it is? As you say, they're very obtuse. And I went very innocently to pick up some sunglasses that I'd ordered at the opticians and some new glasses. And I was in Asda, the supermarket. I think it's owned by your Walmart. And I went to the cafe because she said, can you come back? We're not quite ready for you yet. So I went to the cafe to get a coffee. And this was after I'd been telepathically told I would receive a message. Mm-hmm. And I was stood in the queue, and this man, to me, he was being really rude, because I'm typically British and quite reserved. And he was looking at me, this blonde man. He looked pretty ordinary, very tall, very handsome, and I thought, what is wrong with you? Why are you staring at me? So I stared ahead, and I thought, he must really find me attractive or something. I thought to myself that. And I thought, what is he staring at? And he was with these three other people that were also very tall. There was one lady with them, and there were two men, and they just ordered some drinks, and they were very brief, and then they took it away. They didn't stay in the cafe. They just seemed to order takeaway stuff, which you can do. And my husband was coming, and as soon as this guy saw my husband, he winked at me, and I thought, what are you winking at me for? Go away. I thought, go away. And they went off. And it was after that, and at the time, my phone had been right at the top of my bag, and I swear to you that there was nothing inky or runny or watery in my bag, because I checked, because that was the first thing I thought myself. And these symbols appeared on my phone cover in ink. They were drawn in ink on my phone cover after this encounter in the cafe. And I thought to myself, what the heck is this? And this was during, we were just starting to come out of lockdown, and and I just thought, what the heck is this? And I sent these. A picture of these. There is one in my book, people can look at them. But I sent it to my friend, he's called Mikkel Zerger. I don't know whether you've heard of Mikkel Zerger. He wrote They Are Here. He's actually French, but he lives in Japan. Mm-hmm. And he wrote They Are Here, and he really has had an awful lot of encounters with the Nordics. And he looked at this, and he sent me, have you heard of George Adamski?
Yes.
I don't know what your thoughts are on him, whether he was whatever your thoughts are on him, he had a sample of writing that he alleged was given to him by Orphon. Do you know the story about that?
I'm not so familiar with that story. I'm more familiar with his sightings around Mount Rainier back in 47.
Yes, yeah. I actually believe some of that was genuine at first, but he alleges he was given these symbols by Orphon, and the symbols on my phone looked very much like them, is all I'm going to say. So when I compared my symbols with this sample he sent me, because he's very into this, I thought, oh my God, what the heck? And it just blew my mind, and that's been well, certain people have mocked it, which they're entitled to do if that's what they want to do. But I swear that they kind of accused me of they'd just got on through pen in my bag, but there were no pens in my bag. There was nothing that could have run. I tipped all my bag out to look. I literally went through it with a fine tooth comb, and I swear, because it baffled me completely. It frightened me, in fact. And my husband didn't know what to make of it either. But I put a photograph of my phone cover in there. They've since faded off there. And I have no idea what that meant. And my friend postulated, my friend that I sent them to, he said, maybe they were just saying, we are here. You're right, we are here. We're here among you. Literally, yeah. And this is
fascinating.
Yeah.
And these occurrences are still ongoing too.
They are. I mean, the latest one I had was we said we do the Wainwright Mountains. Well, we did quite a high Wainwright recently towards the end of summer. And we were coming down the mountain, and I've had Nordics appear to me a few times in the Lake District, but I haven't got time to tell you all of them, but I'll just tell you this last one. And we were coming down the mountain, and this very tall man was coming up towards me, and my son was following me behind by about 10 paces, my youngest son. And I smiled at this man, just nodded at him. He just looked perfectly ordinary, although I thought, your energy is a bit weird, and that's all I thought. And I smiled at him. He went on past, and we got to the bottom. I waited for my son to catch up with me, and I said, did you see that man? Because I thought, I wonder what he made of him. What man, Mum? What are you talking about now? It gets a bit, there was no man. I've been following you all the time. There was just you and me. See what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, this all fascinates me to no end, and I'm looking forward to reading your book and stories. We're all looking for answers, and for those of you who are going through these experiences, I know answers are few and far between, but there's definitely some interesting experiences going on, and maybe it is they're preparing you, training you, doing whatever for more things to come. So interested to hear more about your upcoming book. Now, your current book, Phantoms in the Night, or ETs, yes. My lifelong experience of contact with the paranormal. Where can people get a hold of your book?
They can get hold of it at Amazon UK or Amazon USA, or on what's called 6 Books, which is the number 6, just 6 and TH, 6 Books, which is John Hunt Publishers' website, their own site for books. If you put Lorraine McAdam into the Amazon search engine, and my name is LORRAINE and M small c capital ADAM, so it's just McAdam, not Macadam, M small c capital ADAM, then it should bring up my book if you just put that into the Amazon search engine, or if you just put the title in, which you've stated already. I'm sure that it will just pull it up, won't it? Yeah.
And I can attest it came up very quickly for me, so people should be able to find it. Again, Lorraine, thank you so much for coming on the program. This has been a fascinating discussion, and I think we've barely scratched the surface. So
yes. Yeah.
Maybe after the holidays and going into the new year, we might have to have you back.
Well, that would be marvellous. I'd love to be back, because I'd like to tell you more about what happened in 2008, because that was just mind-blowing, what I kind of briefly told you about. Mm-hmm. It was just That was a Scream memory thing, I think, as well. Where they took me, I think, off the motorway literally and put me back down again. There's no other logical explanation.
Okay. Well, I'm about to take a trip tomorrow. It's going to take 2 days driving across country.
Wow.
My one friend said, yeah, definitely look up at night. Maybe you'll see something. And I'm going, well, if they decide to take me, do me a favor and deposit me like a few hundred miles further down the road. Shorten my trip for me because I've got 2 long days of driving ahead of me. So, well, anyway, again, thank you, Lorraine, for coming on. Thank you for everyone else for tuning in to another edition of the Paranormal UK Radio Show, the flagship show here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I did hear from Irene, and she sends her apologies for not being able to be on tonight, but she should be back with me during the next show. So, everyone, have a good couple of weeks. Be good humans, and we will talk with you all later. Have a good one.